Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Offering our salutations to Ramana, who shines as the self in every being, we begin today's Saturday's Satsang with the prayer by Srimati Sapna Ganesh, after which we will have the chanting of the Muktaka trayam by Sri Nandakumarji.
दक्षिणामूर्तिसारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमां रमणाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां शुक्लां वरदरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये आङ्गिकं भुवनं यस्य वाचिकं सर्ववाङ्मयम् आहार्यं चन्द्रतारादि तं नमः सात्विकं शिवम् ॐ नमो भगवते श्रीरमणाय. Namo Ramana to everyone.
एकं अक्षरं हृदि निरन्तरं भासते स्वयं लिख्यते हृदयकुहरमध्ये केवलं ब्रह्ममात्रम् यहमहमिति साक्षात् आत्मरूपेण भाति हृदि विषमनसा स्वं चिन्वता मज्जता पवनचलनरोधा आत्मनिष्ठो भवत्वम् देहं मृण्मयवत् जडात्मकम् अहं बुद्धिर्न तस्यास्त्यतो नाहं तत्तभावशुद्धिसमये सिद्धात्मसद्भाव ओहं भावयुतः कुतो वरभिः दृष्टात्मनिष्टात्मना सोऽहं स्फूर्तितया अरुणाचल शिवः पूर्णो विभाति स्वयं अरुणाचल शिव पूर्णो विभाति स्वयं। नमो रमण।
Namo Ramana. A few verses from Upadesa Saram. Idamaham padabhikyamanvaham ahamilinake pyalaya sattaya vigrahendriya pranadhitama naham ekasat tajjadam yasat satvabhasika chitkvavetara सत्तया हि चित्तया ह्यहम् ईश जीवयोर्वेषधीभिद सत्स्वभावतो वस्तु केवलं वेषहानत स्वात्मदर्शनम् ईशदर्शनं स्वात्मरूपत आत्मसंस्थिति स्वात्मदर्शनम् आत्मनिर्द्वयादात्मनिष्ठता ज्ञानवर्जित अज्ञानहीनचित् ज्ञानमस्ति किं ज्ञातुमन्तरं किं स्वरूपम् इत्यात्मदर्शने अव्यया अभवा आपूर्णचित्सुखं बन्धमुख्यतीतं परं सुखं विन्दतीह जीवस्तु दैविक अहमपेतकं निजविभानकं महदिदं तपो रमणवागियं महदिदं तपो रमणवागियम्. The next part of the satsang, we have the Ramananjali Sangeetam offering by Srimati V. Radha, after which we have an offering by Savitri Krishnan and Jayasriram Krishnan.
Namo Ramana to all. Today I will be presenting a song written by Dr. Sarada and the music is by Sri L. Krishnan. அருணை ரமணன் செல்கின்றான் தன்னையே வலம் வருகின்றான். அருணை ரமணன் செல்கின்றான் தன்னையே வலம் வருகின்றான். பூமி ரதத்தின் இதயமாக விளங்கும் அருணேஷன் தான். பூமி ரதத்தின் இதயமாக விளங்கும் அருணேஷன் தான். அனைத்துயிர் உள்ள அறிவன்பாக பொங்கும் ரமணேஷன் கான். அனைத்துயிர் உள்ள அறிவன்பாக பொங்கும் ரமணேஷன் கான். அருணை ரமணன் செல்கின்றான் தன்னையே வலம் வருகின்றான். அருணை ரமணன் செல்கின்றான் தன்னையே வலம் வருகின்றான். பன்னூறாயிரம் அடியார் அருணாச்சலத்தை வலம் வருகின்றார். அவர் இதயமாக ஒளிரும் ரமணன் தன்னையே வலம் வருகின்றார். அருணை ரமணன் செல்கின்றான் தன்னையே வலம் வருகின்றார். சல 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 அடியார் காலடி ஓசையாராய் ஓடுதே. சல 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 அடியார் காலடி ஓசையாராய் ஓடுதே. விமல ரமணனின் ஒளிமேனி மீது அபிஷேகமாக பொழிகிறதே. விமல ரமணனின் ஒளிமேனி மீது அபிஷேகமாக பொழிகிறதே. அருணை ரமணன் செல்கின்றான் தன்னையே வலம் வருகின்றான். பறவைகள் பாமலர் பாடி செடியும் கொடியும் பூமலர் தூவுதே. பறவைகள் பாமலர் பாடி செடியும் கொடியும் பூமலர் தூவுதே. மரங்களும் சாமரம் வீசியதே சூரிய தீபம் ஒளிர்கிறதே. மரங்களும் சாமரம் வீசியதே சூரிய தீபம் ஒளிர்கிறதே. அருணை ரமணன் செல்கின்றான், தன்னையே வலம் வருகின்றான். அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ கோஷம் எங்கும் ஒலிக்குதே. அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ கோஷம் எங்கும் ஒலிக்குதே. மரணம் நீங்கும் தருணம் இதுவே, மானிட ஜென்மம் பலிக்குதே. மரணம் நீங்கும் தருணம் இதுவே, மானிட ஜென்மம் பலிக்குதே. அருணை ரமணன் செல்கின்றான், தன்னையே வலம் வருகின்றான். அருணை ரமணன் செல்கின்றான், தன்னையே வலம் வருகின்றான். அருணை ரமணன் செல்கின்றான், தன்னையே வலம் வருகின்றான். நமோ ரமண.
அருணாச்சல குரு ரமணம் அருணாச்சல குரு ரமணம் அருணாச்சல குரு ரமணம் அருணாச்சலமே அருணாச்சல குரு ரமணம் அருணாச்சல குரு ரமணம் அருணாச்சல குரு ரமணம் அருணாச்சலமே அருணாச்சல குரு ரமணம் அருணாச்சல குரு ரமணம் யதிநாயக பரவடிவம் எவரும் பணியிறையுருவம் யதிநாயக பரவடிவம் எவரும் பணியிறையுருவம் கதியே தரும் அதிபஞ்சனும் கடவுள் சிவகதிர்மதியும் கதியே தரும் அதிபஞ்சனும் கடவுள் சிவகதிர்மதியும் துதி செய்யடியவரிடம் துரையும் பர சுக நிலையம் துதி செய்யடியவரிடம் துரையும் பர சுக நிலையம் அதிசீதள பரமசிவம் அருணாச்சல குரு ரமணம் அருணாச்சல குரு ரமணம் அருணாச்சல குரு ரமணம் அருணாச்சல குரு ரமணம் அருணாச்சலமே அருணாச்சல குரு ரமணம் அருணாச்சல குரு ரமணம் இமமாமலை தவமுயலும் எவரும் பரசிவனுடலில் இமமாமலை தவமுயலும் எவரும் பரசிவனுடலில் நமதாண்டவன் அருணமலை ரமணாயனும் பெயருடனே நமதாண்டவன் அருணமலை ரமணாயனும் பெயருடனே இமையோ தொழ உழனவன் தனை பாக்கிரை அருள் புரியும் இமையோ தொழ உழனவன் தனை பாக்கிரை அருள் புரியும் அமலாதுமம் பரம சுகம் அருணாச்சல குரு ரமணம் அருணாச்சல குரு ரமணம் அருணாச்சல குரு ரமணம் அருணாச்சல குரு ரமணம் அருணாச்சலமே அருணாச்சல குரு ரமணம் அருணாச்சல குரு ரமணம் பசுமாபதி சிவனருணாச்சலமாயுரை பரமனருள் பசுமாபதி சிவனருணாச்சலமாயுரை பரமனருள் சிசுவாகிய திருவடிவம் சிவசுந்தர ரமணமயம் சிசுவாகிய திருவடிவம் சிவசுந்தர ரமணமயம் விஷுவாகரம் புனைந்தடியார் வினை வாசனை எனும் மனமாம் விஷுவாகரம் புனைந்தடியார் வினை வாசனை எனும் மனமாம் அசுராதிசுந்தரம் புரியும் அருணாச்சல குரு ரமணம் அருணாச்சல குரு ரமணம் अरुणाचल गुरुरमणम् अरुणाचल गुरुरमणम् अरुणाचलमे अरुणाचल गुरुरमणम् अरुणाचल गुरुरमणम् अरुणाचल गुरुरमणम् अरुणाचलमे अरुणाचल गुरुरमणम् अरुणाचल गुरुरमणम्
ओम नमो भगवते श्री रमणाय।
Namo Ramana. In the next part of the satsang, we have a reading and a sharing session by Sri Nandakumarji.
Namo Ramana. In this, the book reading segment of our satsang, we continue our readings from Forever is in the Now, the timeless message of Sri Ramana Maharshi, edited and compiled by our founder president Sri A.R. Natarajanji. We are in the third and final segment of this book, entitled The Confluence. We are going back to read once again a few paragraphs in the beginning, which we had covered, of Paul Brunton under the title The Impact. Paul Brunton, of course, has been introduced as the best known writer on the Maharishi. His search in secret India made Ramana and his teachings popular in the West. His book Secret Path was also inspired by Ramana. He is the author of 11 books in his lifetime. 16 books have been published posthumously. The Impact. Paul Brunton. 40 years have passed since I walked into his abode and saw the Maharishi half reclining, half sitting on a couch. After such a long period, most memories of the past become somewhat faded, if they do not lose their existence altogether. But I can truthfully declare that in his case, nothing of the kind has happened. On the contrary, his face, expression, figure, and surroundings are as vivid now as they were then. What is even more important to me is that, at least during my daily periods of meditation, the feeling of his radiant presence is as actual and as immediate today as it was on that first day. So powerful an impression could not have been made, nor continued through the numerous vicissitudes of an incarnation which has taken me around the world, if the Maharishi had been an ordinary yogi, much less an ordinary man. I have met dozens of yogis in their eastern and western varieties and many exceptional persons. Whatever status is assigned to the Maharishi by his followers, or whatever indifference is shown to him by others, my own position is independent and unbiased. It is based upon our private talks in those early days when such things were still possible, before fame brought crowds, upon observations of and conversations with those who were around him, upon his historical record, and finally, upon my own personal experiences, whatever they are worth. Upon all this evidence, one fact is incontrovertibly clear, that he was a pure channel for a higher power. This capacity of his to put his own self-consciousness aside and to let himself be suffused by this power is not to be confounded with what is commonly called in the West spiritualistic mediumship. For no spirit of a departed person ever spoke through him. On the contrary, the silence which fell upon us at such times was both extraordinary and exquisite. No physical phenomena of an occult kind was ever witnessed then. Nothing at all happened outwardly. But those who were not steeped too far in materialism to recognize what was happening within him and within themselves at the time, or those who were not congealed too stiffly in suspicion or criticism to be passive and sensitive intuitively, felt a distinct and strange change in the mental atmosphere. It was uplifting and inspiring. For the time being, it pushed them out of their little selves, even if only partially. This change came every day, and mostly during the evening periods when the Maharishi fell into deep contemplation. No one dared to speak then, and all conversations were brought to an end. A grave sacredness permeated the entire scene and evoked homage, reverence, even awe. But before the sun's departure brought about this remarkable transformation, and for most of the day, the Maharishi behaved, ate, and spoke like a perfectly normal human being. That there was some kind of a participation in a worldless divine play during those evenings, each to the extent of his own response, was the feeling with which some of us arose when it all ended. That the Maharishi was the principal actor was true enough on the visible plane, but there was something more. In his own teachings, Sri Ramana Maharshi often quoted, whether in association or confirmation, the writings of the first Acharya, Shankara, who lived more than 1,000 years ago. He considered them unquestionably authoritative. He even translated some of them from one Indian language to another. In the temple of Chenglipat, I interviewed His Holiness, the Shankara Acharya of Kamakoti Peetam, in a linear successor of the first Guru. When the meeting was concluded, but before I left, I took the chance to ask a personal question. A disciple of the Maharishi had come to me and wanted to take me to his Guru. None of those I asked could tell me anything about him, nor had even heard of him. I was undecided whether to make the journey or not. His Holiness, that is the Shankaracharya of Kamakoti Peetam, His Holiness immediately urged me to go and promised satisfaction. He is still alive, that is the Shankaracharya, while this article is being written. He is still alive and still active in the religious world of southern India. Sometimes, as I looked at the figure of Ramana Maharshi on the couch, I wondered if he would ever come to England. If so, how would he be dressed? How would he behave in those teeming London streets? How eat, live, and work? But he was uninterested in traveling, and so he never came, not in the physical body. What did come was his spirit and mind, which have awakened sufficient interest among the English. Again and again, he gave us this teaching that the real Maharishi was not the body which people saw, it was the inner being. Those who never made the journey to India during his lifetime may take comfort in this thought that it is possible to invoke his presence wherever they are and to feel its reality in the heart. Again and again, he gave us this teaching that the real Maharishi was not the body which people saw, it was the inner being. Those who never made the journey to India during his lifetime may take comfort in this thought, and it is possible to invoke his presence wherever they are and to feel its reality in the heart. We go to the next article, A Mere Look by Swami Chinmayananda. Swami Chinmayananda, we know as the founder president of Chinmaya Mission. The introduction here is Swami Chinmayananda. He has written commentaries on several Upanishads and the Bhagavad Gita. He is the founder and head of Chinmaya Mission. A mere look, Swami Chinmayananda. I was just emerging from high school. Exams were over and the summer holidays had just started. On a package railway ticket, I was roaming through South India. So there was marketing of railways even then, I suppose. As the train steamed through the countryside at a halting speed, most of the other passengers in my compartment suddenly peered through the windows in great excitement and bowed reverently to an elaborate temple beyond. Inquiring about it, I was told it was the Tiruvannamalai temple. Thereafter, the talk of my fellow travelers turned to Sri Ramana Maharshi, who they said was staying in the dusty, sleepy town of Tiruvannamalai. The word Maharishi conjured up in my mind ancient forest retreats and superhuman beings of divine glow. Though I was at that time a convinced atheist, I was deeply drawn to visit the Maharishi's ashram. Though I was at that time a convinced atheist, I was deeply drawn to visit the Maharishi's ashram. Since I had nothing else to do, I chose to take the next available train to Tiruvannamalai, and that's how he had come, and the description about the temple. On arriving at my destination, I began to inquire about the way. Although it was only 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning, it was insufferably hot. Tired and exhausted, not used to walking in the sun, I dragged myself forward, asking at every few furlongs, "Where is the Ramanashram?" Everyone very obligingly pointed in the very direction I was moving and assured me, "There, just a little more. You have almost reached it." All newcomers feel this, that those who are in that place will tell, "So near," and it will take so much time to go there. After another half an hour of tiring walk, I finally reached the ashram. At the ashram, I was told that the Maharishi was in the thatched hall directly in front of me, and that anybody was free to walk in and see him. As I entered the hall, I had to stop and grope. Having come in from the blazing light of the midday sun, I found myself blinking. After a few moments, I could vaguely make out some 8 or 9 people sitting silently around a wooden couch. I moved forward and sat down in an empty space. There was silence. Slowly, my eyes began to see things more clearly. On the couch was an elderly man, wearing but a loincloth, reclining against a round bolster, his hand now and then moving languidly to fan himself. It so happened that I had sat down at the very foot of the wooden couch. The Maharishi suddenly opened his eyes and looked straight into mine. I looked into his. A mere look, that was all. I felt that the Maharishi was, in that split moment, looking deep into me. And I was sure that he saw all my shallowness, confusions, faithlessness, imperfections, and fears. I was ashamed, but I did not want to take my eyes away from his embracing look. Yet, I could not stand that honest, kind, and pitying look of pure love and wisdom. In fact, it was I who had to look away, and the next moment, when I gazed at his face again, he had closed his eyes. Let us see those 2 paragraphs again. It so happened that I had sat down at the very foot of the wooden couch, like Arjuna at the feet of Sri Krishna, perhaps. The Maharishi suddenly opened his eyes and looked straight into mine. I looked into his. A mere look, and that was all. I felt the Maharishi was, in that split moment, looking deep into me, and I was sure that he saw all my shallowness, confusions, faithlessness, imperfections, and fears. I was ashamed, and I did not want to take my eyes away from his embracing look. Yet, I could not stand that honest, kind, and pitying look of pure love and deep wisdom. In fact, it was I who had to look away. And the next moment, when I gazed at his face again, he had again closed his eyes. I cannot explain what happened in that one split moment. I felt opened, cleaned, healed, and emptied. A strange feeling, fear mixed with love, hate colored by affection, love honeyed with shyness, joy drowned in sorrow. A world of confusions, my atheism dropping away, but skepticism flooding in to question, wonder, and search. My reason gave me strength. It is all mesmerism, my own foolishness. Thus assuring myself, I got up and walked away. I cannot explain what happened in that one split moment, he says. I felt opened, cleaned, healed, and emptied. A strange feeling, fear mixed with love, hate colored by affection, love honeyed with shyness, joy drowned in sorrow, a world of confusions, my atheism dropping away, but skepticism flooding in to question, wonder, and search. My reason gave me strength. It is all mesmerism to my own foolishness. Thus assuring myself, I got up and walked away. But I knew the boy who left the hall was not the boy who had gone in some 10 minutes before. After my college days, my political work, and after my years of stay at Uttarkashi at the feet of my master, Sri Tapovanam, I knew that what I had gained on the Ganges banks was that which I had been given years before by the saint of Tiruvannamalai on that hot summer day by a mere look. When he gains the clearing anubhava of the Atmanishta, he understands this is the same clearing that Bhagavan had given by a mere look. All the dross cleared and Bhagavan's eyes taking him directly to that source. But I knew, says Chinmayanandaji, the boy who left the hall was not the boy who had gone in some 10 minutes before. After my college days, my political work, and after my years of stay at Uttarkashi at the feet of my master Sri Tapovanam, I knew that what I had gained on the Ganges banks was that which I had been given years before by the saint of Tiruvannamalai on that hot summer day by a mere look. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya.
Namo Ramana. We move on to the next session of Self-enquiry by Sri Dileep Simha ji.
ध्यायेत् शारदचन्द्रसुन्दरमुखम् ताम्रारविन्देक्षणम् भक्ताभीष्टवराभयप्रदकरम् कौपीनमात्रोज्ज्वलम् स्वात्मानन्दरसानुभूतिविवशम् सर्वानवद्याङ्गकम् श्रीमन्तं श्रीरमणीश्वरं गुरुवरं योगासनाध्यासितं ध्यायेत् श्रीरमणीश्वरं ध्यायेत् श्रीरमणीश्वरं ध्यायेत् श्रीरमणीश्वरम् हृदयकुहरमध्ये केवलं ब्रह्ममात्रं यहमहमिति साक्षादात्मरूपेण हृदिविषमनसा स्वं चिन्वतामच्युतव पवनचलनरोधा आत्मनिष्ठो भवत्वम्. We will commence the Atma Vicharam by listening to Bhagavan's Upadesham. I'll be reading from the book Guru Vachaka Kovai, in the chapter Meditation on the Truth. The topic blessed for the evening is Mahavakya, great saying. Verse 505. Know that the essence of supreme truth, that is churned like butter from milk, from the four Vedas, which are pregnant with many ignorance dispelling words, is the one unique word Mauna, that denotes the identity of the Jiva with the Supreme. I repeat, know that the essence of supreme truth, that is churned like butter from milk, from the four Vedas, which are pregnant with many ignorance dispelling words, is the one unique word Mauna, that denotes the identity of the Jiva with the Supreme. It is the Mauna which is the essence, says all the Vedas, which is the essence that we experience through Atma Vichara, when the differences or the identity of being an individual is let gone, and the Supreme, the One Self, which alone is realized. And there, at that juncture, the silence, the Mauna alone remains. And therefore, it is like the it is like the butter which is in the milk. The butter is easily not identifiable when it is in the milk form. But when it is churned with the enquiry, then the butter which was not there is found to be present as with the milk. Like that, though we have this identity and differences, the substratum for that is that Mauna, that silence, the pure being consciousness. Only when we inquire, then we see the butter alone is. So Bhagavan, to reveal that one thing which alone is, and to dispel all the differences causing thoughts, he asks us to diligently inquire every thought, no matter whatever is the nature of the thought, to whom is this? Thereupon it becomes clear, it is for me. Further, even I, to me, is also another thought. When we inquire, who am I? And trace the I to the source, then we see the substratum, the pure being consciousness, which is the pure silence itself, alone is. So the Atma Vichara, the inquiry, takes us repeatedly to that source and makes us get acquainted with the reality. And with repeated practice, it becomes clear that the silence, the Mauna of the self alone is. The immense grace of Bhagavan with which we have come to this most direct path, which gives even the path makes us experience the highest truth here and now. For the next 10 minutes, let us do Atma Vichara. Sri Ramanaya Namo.
We continue the satsang with the meditations on the work Atma Bodha and sharing by Sri Venkatesh Deshpande ji.
Oh. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviram Karvavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Gurur Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Dhyanamulam Gurur Murti, Pujamulam Gurur Padam, Mantramulam Gurur Vakyam, Mokshamulam Gurur Kripa, Mokshamulam Gurur Kripa. Namo Ramana. We're doing Manana on Atma Bodha. In the last satsang, we actually did Manana on verse number 1. I'll just do a little recap of that. So, what the first verse was is being composed to serve the needs of those whose sins are removed by austerities, who are calm, free from desires and yearning for liberation. Those are the qualities that they're looking for. The qualifications necessary for a student to study Vedanta are enumerated in this verse. They prepare his inner personality for grasping the subtle ideas expounded in the text. The development of the qualifications will help them to get the best from the study of the text. The more you acquire these qualities, the better is your understanding of the text. The better is the understanding, the greater is the ability to acquire these qualities. Thus, the deeper you go, you delve into the subject, the subtler becomes the adjustment of your inner personality, and vice versa. So, the following are the 4 qualifications prescribed for an ideal student. So, what should an ideal student be like? So, like if you go to tuitions to somebody, what would the teacher will say? He or she will try and understand where the student is and what the student lacks and what's he good at and what's he not good at. So similarly, this is a thing that is being talked about in the Atma Bodha. One is annihilation of sins through the practice of austerities. Number 2, so annihilation of sins means basically antarkarana shuddhi. You have to do enough of austerities. It could be any type of austerities that we will talk about, and that basically should be it talks about annihilation of the sins. So second is calmness of the mind. Very important. Calmness of the mind is the second thing. The third is the freedom from desires. Because, as we all know, if you have desires, you are giving fuel to the mind, as we understand. So, you should be freedom from desires. And fourth is yearning for liberation. The mumukshu, you should have great longing for God. These four are the basic qualification prescribed for an ideal student. An ideal student. We all want to be ideal students. So that moksha moolam guru kripaha. The guru's kripa will come only if you are an ideal student. Annihilation of sins or papa through austerities. Tapas is not self-torturing. Some practices. Some people do great austerities, but they are self-torturing or forced self-denial. I won't eat for the next 30 days, which frustrates an individual. Tapas envisages two types of discipline at the physical level. The negative aspect of the disciple is to prevent sensual dissipations by exercising self-control. So wherever there is your energies are being lost in negative thoughts, you should use self-control. The positive aspect is utilize the conserved energy for higher ideals of life. So that is tapas. The second one is calmness of the mind. This is a very important thing. A disciple at the mental level, the mind has a tendency to seek the sense objects of the world. And what happens? These mental indulgences cause agitations, but when the mind is turned towards the higher values of life, it becomes peaceful. What the second thing is instead of being in the lower mind of lust, greed, anger, hatred, and jealousy, you go to the higher mind of being compassionate, loving, giving. Being in that, when you go to the higher mind, the lower mind automatically goes away, and then you get a sense of calmness. So that's the second. The third one is freedom from desires. You should not have any desires. Desires of any sort. A desire is a plan or a scheme entertained by the intellect to set right an imperfection felt within yourself. As long as your intellect entertains desires, your mind remains agitated. You feel imperfect only with the reference to your matter, equipments, for example, your body, mind, and intellect. You feel that there's something lacking in this. Then what? Identifying with these equipments, you believe yourself to be limited and imperfect. So you think so why does it happen? You're living in the past or you're living in the future. You're not living the present. You are never there in the present. So that is the third one. The fourth one is yearning for liberation. How many of us really want liberation? Is the question that we need to ask ourselves. If at this moment in our lives, and we have seen this with many great ones, when they have been asked, when the devotees are sitting around a realized soul, many times, I'll give you one example. Papa Ramdas himself, in Kanhangarh, he was sitting and he was having a satsang, and Krishna Bai also was sitting there, and he told, I will give you 3 minutes. Whoever wants liberation, I will give them liberation here and now. And then he said, the time starts now. And 1 minute went. He said, 1 minute over. Nobody came forward. Number 2, 2 minutes finished. Nobody came forward. 3 minutes. Nobody came forward. Krishna Bai was telling Papa Ramdas, what is this you have done? She says, yes, I want a true seeker who wants liberation. I'm ready to give him liberation. But nobody came forward. So this is a very important thing. We've got to ask ourselves seriously, do we really want liberation or not? That mumukshutva, that longingness for God, that single-pointed longingness for God is the fourth thing. That actually is the most important thing in a devotee that the gurus look for. So the mental energy is so conserved by the above disciple is directed towards gaining moksha or liberation. All worldly desires must be substituted by the one desire to gain spiritual liberation. So this is a very important thing. So these four aspects of we should always keep in our mind. The four aspects are annihilation of sins through the practice of austerities. Secondly is the calmness in the mind. Third is freedom from desires. And fourth is the yearning for liberation. So now we come to the verse number 2. I request Sapna to kindly chant it, please.
Yes, sir. बोधहन्यसाधनेभ्यः हि साक्षात् मोक्ष एकसाधनं पाकस्य वह्निवत् ज्ञानं विना मोक्षः न सिद्ध्यति बोधः अन्यसाधनेभ्यः हि साक्षात् मोक्ष एकसाधनं पाकस्य वह्निवत् ज्ञानं विना मोक्षः न सिद्ध्यति. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sapna. Of all spiritual disciplines, knowledge of self is verily the direct means for liberation. Just as fire is for cooking, liberation cannot be attained without knowledge of self. In the first verse, the spiritual disciplines essential for aspirants were enumerated. Such disciplines are only preliminary preparations necessary for gaining the ultimate experience of self-realization. They serve as a means to reach the final goal of realization. This verse states that knowledge is the only way of obtaining liberation, moksha. All other spiritual practices, sadhanas, are only means to attain the ultimate experience. The comparison of knowledge with fire in the process of cooking illustrates this idea. Before fire is applied for cooking, the raw food has to be prepared by cleaning, peeling, cutting, etc. These are all subsidiary processes to actual cooking. Food is finally cooked with the application of fire. Similarly, spiritual practices like dedicated actions, rituals, and pilgrimages, study and reflection, etc., are all auxiliary preparations leading to spiritual unfoldment. Liberation is attained with knowledge of the self. This verse cautions those who believe that the ultimate liberation can be achieved by mechanical spiritual practices. However, it is not intended to slight such practices. They are necessary for progress in the path of evolution. So, important thing that is spoken about in this is that self-knowledge is most important towards understanding who you really are, because you may get all the knowledge in the world, you may have all the knowledge about all the objects in the world. It's not going to help you in the self-knowledge. Now, you may do karma, you may do bhakti, you may do Raj Yoga, you may do pranayama, you may do all sorts of things. Hatha yoga may do all sorts of things, but they are not, they are good, they are necessary. But what happens is the self-knowledge. That's why self-enquiry is very important. Atma vichara is very important, because when you inquire into the nature of the mind, the knot that gets cut off, the knot which makes us believe that we are this body, mind, intellect, and whatever the world that we see in nama and rupa, in time and space, is all very real for us. It cuts that knot, and then you are established in the self. That's what the Atma Bodha is, self-knowledge. So in this thing, in this verse, it's very clearly said that the preparatory things are needed, are necessary. It's like cutting the vegetables, cleaning the vegetables, peeling the vegetables. All that is necessary before you actually cook it. But for cooking, you need the fire. Similarly, for final getting self-knowledge, you need to get self-realization, you need self-knowledge. So important thing is we need to keep doing. That's why we did 10 minutes of self-inquiry, because that's the only way to self-realization. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana. We move on to the next part of the satsang, where we have a sharing by Dr. Kalarani Rengasamy on the text Devika Lotram Jnana Vichara Padalam.
Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. அருணாச்சலமென அகமே நினைப்பவர் அகத்தை வேறறுப்பார் அருணாச்சலம். Namo Ramana to all. With the abundance grace of Bhagavan, we are meditating on Devi Kalotra Jnana Vichara Padalam, very graciously given to us by Bhagavan in Tamil. And in the last satsang we saw, Nane Para Brahmam, I am Para Brahma Swarupam. Who made me realize this truth? Only Guru can do that. Who is Guru? He is Jnana Swarupa. Who is Ishvara Swarupa? The one who is the Karnakarta of the whole universe. So there is no difference between Guru and God. One who accepts this truth and abide himself in that truth is said to be the Mahapurusha. Otherwise, if he is a person who goes in the other path, will fall in the worldly attachments for sure. That is confirmed. What does a guru do? He acts both from outside and from inside. From outside, he pushes the sadhaka's mind inward from the outside world, and from inside, he pulls the mind and makes it abide in the self. So, we need a pull and push action, like on a train which is operated with two engines, one at the front and one at the back. Because the ahankara, the ego, is so strong with vasanas that even with a very small gap, it will escape and fall into samsara, worldly attachments. Is samsara, does it mean only the family or the society clutches? No. Each and every thought is samsara. When thoughts are there, naturally the desire, hatred, anger, all are the free gifts of ahankara. So, Guru has a very great task of pulling and pushing the mind from inside and outside us. In the next stanza, Bhagavan beautifully says, Endra Uruvan Tannai Deham Ilanagave Tan Jnana Kanninal Tan Kanban. Endra Uruvan Tannai Deham Ilanagave Tan Jnana Kanninal Tan Kanban. When one gets the awareness that he is not the body alone, when one comes out of this Dehatma Bhava through Jnana, realizes the truth and sees only the Nija Swarupa, he surpasses the time and space, because only body conscious is there. When there is a body conscious, there is time and space. If not, he is free bird, all pervasive. He could see no difference in the world. Only when the difference is seen, all desires creep in. Because with body conscious, I find the difference in me and others. I see different things and I want to get that thing which I prefer. I feel happy only when I get that. Otherwise, I feel very unhappy. I feel sorrow. When there is body conscious, that is the first thought. And around that thought, all other thoughts come in. I must be first in everything. I must be the other person. though it is not my turn, I must get the promotion in the office. Because of this, we got so many inventions and innovations. No doubt. We got 2G, 5G, so many onlines that wonders are happening, no wonder. But what we are taking this, the strain, what is the purpose? To be happy, isn't it? But are we happy with all these technologies, all these advancements? But are we happy with these advancements? In olden days, in houses, there will be only one chair. When a guest comes in, he will be offered that chair. Others in the house will sit around him or will be standing and talking very happily. But now the whole house is furnished. Wherever we go, you get furnitures to sit on. But guest is not coming to the house because all conversations get over through WhatsApp, Viber, Instagram, Telegram, and so on and so forth. But still, man is not satisfied. Still, companies is giving so much importance to research and development. R&D department is given very importance. All these are the outcome of our thoughts that I am the body alone. Yatra yatra sariram tatra tatra dukkham, says Shankara. Let it be Indra Sarira. Let it be Brahma Sarira. With body conscious, it is Dukkham only. Indra is always tensed. When someone is doing tapas, he gets tension because he's afraid. They will come and grab his simhasana. Brahma, when he lost the Vedas, he got tensed. As body conscious make a man unhappy, Bhagavan says, the moment when you get rid of the body conscious, what wonders will happen? You can enjoy that. In the next line, Bhagavan says, Tannai deham ilanagave tan ஞான கண்ணினால் தான் காண்பான். Through awareness, when one realizes that he is not limited to this body, at that moment, when he realizes he is not limited to that body and he is in the space, the whole space, Andre, at that very moment, Andre, அனைத்தினும் ஆசை அறவிட்டு சாந்திதனை துன்னியோன் ஆவன் தான். From that very auspicious moment, one drops all his desires. We are going to celebrate Deepavali in another 2 days. As Bhagavan's devotee, we all know celebrating Deepavali is not wearing new dresses, cracking fireworks and all, but we are enjoying the sweets. But it becomes auspicious when only if the darkness or the ajnana that I am this body alone is removed. Only when at that time, at that auspicious, that is the auspicious moment of this Deepavali that we are going to celebrate. That is why that in that way Bhagavan says, from that very auspicious moment, that when one drops all his desires, he needs nothing in this world because he sees nothing other than himself. Only when something other than oneself is seen, he wants that thing. When everything is seen as same, as Brahma Surupam, there is nothing else to own anything as mine. He sees everything as Brahman, Anma, nothing other than Atma. And what is Atma? He does not get affected by anything in the world because when everything is Atma, on whom one has to show the hatred, anger, and with whom one has to enjoy the happiness. Because happiness is with all in the same measure, and that is Purnatvam. Only thing is one has to get the awareness, realize that awareness, and he is the Purana Vastu and none other than the Purana Vastu. This awareness comes when body conscious vanishes. In that state, Bhagavan says there is only Shanti, only calmness. Santi Danai Tunniyon Avantan. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya.
Namo Ramana. We move to the next part of the satsang, where we are meditating on the verses of Ramana Chatvarimshat written by Ganapati Muni, and they have been compiled and titled Ramana Chatvarimshat by Bhagavan Ramana himself. And we are meditating on the 21st verse. Janmasthanamavapya guptamahamoyo bedamadutawan bhutanam charatam pritagvidadiyam atmaiva yobhasate deham sarvamidam jagatcha vibhavadakramyaya prolasat Ekastam Guru Murti Manamadare Lambodara Brataram Ramanaya Loka Gurave Namaha Ramanaya Loka Gurave Namaha Janmastana Ahammina ಗೌಪ್ಯತಿಳಿದು ಬೇದಗಳ ತೊರೆದವ ನಾನಾವಿಧ ಸ್ಥಾವರ ಜಂಗಮಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಆತ್ಮವಾಗಿ ಬೆಳಗುವವ ದೇಹವನು ಸಕಲ ಜಗವನು ತನ್ನ ವೈಭವದಿ ಆಕ್ರಮಿಸಿ ಹೊಳೆವವ ಆ ಗುರುಮೂರ್ತಿಗೆ ನಮಿಸಿ ಮಾನವರೇ ಗಣಪತಿಯ ಭ್ರಾತನವ ರಮಣನಿಗೆ ಲೋಕ ಗುರುವಿಗೆ ನಮನ ರಮಣನಿಗೆ ಲೋಕ ಗುರುವಿಗೆ ನಮನ. In this verse, Ganapati Muni says, the Guru Murti, the form of the Guru, the divine who has taken, he is none other than my own brother, Ganapati's brother. And this verse, which is the verse number 21, the number 21 is very, very auspicious for Ganapati. We always do 21 namaskarams or 21 baskis for Ganapati. And in this very important 21st verse, Ganapati Muni says, the essence of the teaching what Bhagavan Ramana has given to us. And what is the essence of teaching that Bhagavan is giving us? Bhagavan tells us that the self alone exists. There is nothing else apart from the self which exists. But we see so many differences. We see so many manifestations. And all these differences are only created by a false notion. That notion is that notion that I am this body, this limited entity. That false notion which is called as the ego or which is called as the mind, that is the one which causes all these manifestations and differences. But Ramana, who has gone beyond these differences and who has understood the basis of all these various manifestations, he is free from all the differences. He sees that one self which shines within everyone. Ramana is telling this, but we do not have complete faith in those words of Bhagavan Ramana. So Ganapati Muni says, oh human being, he is the Guru. Have full faith in the Guru and undergo the path that he has shown. Take that path which is shown by the Guru. Have full faith and keep on doing. This was the Upadesha given by Muruganar Swami to Sharda Katu. And to have full faith, Ganapati Muni says, this is the truth which is being told by Bhagavan. Follow it. And to understand this truth, I remembered a story which I heard during one of the induction programs, where they were telling a story about a customer who once bought a new car. Today being Dhanteras, people usually buy new goods for their house, new accessories for their houses, and one of such person had taken a new car, and that new car, he found there was a problem with that car, and he complained it to the customer care, the company. He told, this car seems to be allergic to the vanilla ice cream. And the person who received this mail from the company was shocked. He wondered, how can a car be allergic to vanilla ice cream? And then he wrote back to that customer, sir, I didn't understand what is the problem. Can you please explain? And the customer explained that we, every day after our dinner, some days we usually go to a ice cream parlor nearby. And when we go there, whenever we order vanilla ice cream, after that, when we take the vanilla ice cream and come back to our cars, the car does not budge. It does not start at all. It does not listen to whatever we try, it doesn't get started. And I find it very, very difficult to get back home. But whenever we buy some other ice cream, we buy a chocolate ice cream, or we buy badam or pista or something else, it always works. And the engineer was puzzled, and the engineer told, let me send you a person who can be with you, and he sees what is the problem when the problem is occurring, and then he will try to resolve it. And an engineer was sent to take care of that problem. And when the engineer went, he noticed the same thing. Whenever the vanilla ice cream was taken by everyone, then the car wouldn't start. But the next day, when they went and bought some other ice cream, at that time the car started without any problem. The engineer wondered, the customers said looked foolish, but it seems to be true. But the truth is, the car cannot be allergic to vanilla ice cream or any other ice cream. So there is some other thing which I need to inquire. So he took his timer, he took his paper and pencil to make notes, and then he saw that in the shop there, the vanilla counter, which was a very, very popular flavor which people chose, the vanilla counter was separate. So whenever somebody chose vanilla ice cream, they were given quickly and there was no delay in the giving. But the other ice creams, they were all into one counter. So the people took more time to choose the flavor they wanted, and it took more time for them to get their order. So he timed the time which is taken to get the vanilla ice cream, and also the time taken to get the other ice creams. Then when he looked into the engine, he realized that one part in the engine was getting heated up while it was driven to the ice cream parlor. And when vanilla ice cream was taken, they used to get the order quickly, so that part did not cool down. So because of that, it caused a problem and the car was not starting. But when they took some other flavored ice cream which took a longer time, by that time that part of the engine had already cooled down. So once they started the engine, it was starting very quickly, and from this the engineer got to know the root problem. Outside it looked like the car was allergic to some ice cream, but when he got into the root problem, He could know what was the problem and he gave a solution to that problem in the engine, and the problem was resolved. And Bhagavan Ramana says the cause for all the problems is the problem that we think that we are this body. If that is tackled, if one finds out what is the source of this I thought, this ego which rises, and it is annihilated, at that point of time the true self shines. And then we get to know that this ego never existed. It is only a knot. This truth is understood when we inquire into the Janmasthana. Bhagavan Ramana has written a song on the significance of Deepavali, which we are celebrating in a few days. And in that song, he talks about the Narakasura as the one who thinks that this body is me, and the one who thinks that this body is me, and one who rules this body is Narakasura. And when we go back to the Puranas and find out who is this Narakasura, what is the Janmasthana of this Narakasura, we understand that Narakasura was born by the union of the Varaha Avatara Vishnu and the Mother Earth Bhuma Devi, by the union of Vishnu and Mother Earth, Varaha Rupa Vishnu and Mother Earth. This beautiful child called Narakasura was born. What is the significance of this? The Vishnu is the pure consciousness which is ever shining within. And the Bhuma Devi is this body, Kshetra, that we call, that Bhagavan Sri Krishna calls in Bhagavad Gita. And when this body and the pure consciousness, when they come together, when there is a union of these two, a knot is created. And that knot is none other than the ego Narakasura. There's no problem with that knot. But when this knot thinks that he is the body, then he holds on to various desires. And that is shown that the Narakasura, when he grew up, he started imprisoning various girls, beautiful girls, the Gopikas. They were all imprisoned. So Narakasura, who is the thought that I am this body, when we think that we are this body, we want to hold on to various desires. I want this, I want that, I don't want this, I don't want that. These desires that we hold on are the various Gopikas, 16,000 Gopikas, which the Narakasura had imprisoned. And he had received a boon, saying that it is only when his own mother decides to kill him, then alone he will die. Who is that mother? This body is the mother. When this body makes its mind to destroy the thought, I am this body, then alone it is possible. When we decide that we should do sadhana, then alone we will get to annihilate this ego Narakasura. And who is riding on this chariot called the body? He is none other than Krishna himself. And that Krishna, with his Sudarshana Chakra of enquiry, of the question, who am I? With that question, like the Sudarshana Chakra, when it grinds the Narakasura, when it kills the I thought, then the idea that I am this body, this limited entity, is completely lost, and the true self shines as Narayana. And that is the true significance of Naraka Chaturdashi, and that is the true significance of Deepavali, the festival where one turns within and realizes the truth that one is the light of the Supreme and one is not the darkness. One is not the Narakasura who used to live in a kingdom of darkness, Prag Jyotishapura. And when once we understand that we are that supreme light within, then those desires may be there or may not be there, yet it will not make any difference. Krishna says in a story when Krishna told that Parikshit Maharaj was born dead, and a true brahmachari can alone make him come alive. All the great rishis did not come forward because they had doubts about their own brahmacharya. But Krishna, one who was wedded to 16,000 and more wives, he came and he told, if I am a true brahmachari, let my touch bring Parikshit Maharaj to life. And when Krishna touched the born dead baby Parikshit Maharaj, he got back to life. And when we wonder, how is this possible? How can Krishna be a brahmachari? Krishna said that I do not see anybody as others. I do not see anybody as separate from me. I don't see any differences because the self alone exists and I am that self which does not have any differences. To teach us this truth, Ramana has come in the form of the Guru, and he is none other than the brother of Ganapati. Let us all salute to him and follow his path of self-enquiry to understand the true Janmasthana of the Aham and to abide in the true source of that Aham, to find ourselves as that one self and stop seeing all the differences and all the problem which these differences causes by the grace of Bhagwan Ramana, says Ganapati Muni in this verse. We move on to the next part where we have the chanting of a few verses from Arunachala Aksharamanamalai by Srimati V. Radha.
Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala. மொட்டையடித்தென்னை வெட்ட வெளியில் நீ நட்டமாடினையன் அருணாச்சலா. மோகம் தவிர்த்தும் உன் மோகம் அவைத்தும் என் மோகம் தீராயேன் அருணாச்சலா. மௌனிய கற்போல் மலராதிருந்தால் மௌனமிதாமோ அருணாச்சலா. யவனின் வாயின் மண்ணினையட்டி என் பிழை பொழித்த தருணாச்சலா. யாரும் அறியாதன் மதியினை மருட்டி எவர் கொள்ளை கொண்ட தருணாச்சலா. ரமணன் என்று உரைத்தேன் ரோஷம் கொள்ளாதென்னை ரமித்திட செய்யவா அருணாச்சலா. ராப்பகலில்லா வெறுவெளி வீட்டில் ரமித்திடுவோம் வா அருணாச்சலா. லட்சியம் வைத்தருள் அஸ்திரம் விட்டென்னை பக்ஷித்தாய் பிராணனோடு அருணாச்சலா. லாப நீக பர லாபமில் என்னையுற்று லாபம் வெண்ணுற்றனை அருணாச்சலா. வரும்படி சொல்லில்லை வந்தென் படியள வருந்திடும் தலை விதி அருணாச்சலா. வாவென்றகம் புக்கும் வாழ்வருளன்று என் வாழ்விழுந்தேன் அருள் அருணாச்சலா. விட்டிடில் கட்டமா விட்டிடாதுனை உயிர் விட்டிட அருள் புரி அருணாச்சலா. அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ 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 அருணாச்சலா. அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா. அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா. அருணாச்சலம் வாழி அன்பர்களும் வாழி
Namo Ramana. We move on to the next sharing by Dr. Sarada on the verses from Ramana Ashtottaram written by Vishwanatha Swami. Today we are celebrating the Aradhana of Vishwanatha Swami too, and it is our great fortune that we are meditating on those names given by Vishwanatha Swami.
Namo Ramana. Prostrations to Ramana, shining as a self in all beings. By the immense grace of the self, manifest as Ramana in this part of the satsang, we are meditating on the namas from Ramana Ashtottaram, composed by Vishwanatha Swami. Vishwanatha Swami had come to Bhagavan when he was a young boy of 19 at Skandashram, and there itself he had the experience of the what he calls the Ramana Lahari, the great blissful experience of Ramana, which in the Ramana Ashtottaram he calls the Apara Satchit Sukhavari Rashehe. That Apara Satchit Sukhavari, that the great ocean of existence, consciousness, bliss, which is infinite, which is boundless, apara, and who is the indweller of the heart, guhahitam, and who is very, very deep, gabhiram. Of such a one, we will meditate. On such a one, we will meditate through the 108 names, says Vishwanatha Swami. And Vishwanatha Swami also had a very beautiful experience at the time of Bhagavan's Aradhana. Today we are celebrating the date of Vishwanatha Swami's Aradhana. So I remember his experience at the time of Bhagavan's Aradhana. And he says he was immersed in that same Ramana Lahari at the time of Bhagavan's Aradhana. Many at that time were torn by the physical separation from Bhagavan, but Vishwanatha Swami at that moment felt immersed in that supreme bliss of Ramana, Ramanananda Lahari. And in the Ashtottram, we are meditating on that section of the Nama of Bhagavan, where he has come to Tiruvannamalai and he is abiding here, steeped in the greatest bliss of the self as Tapomayaya Namaha and Udasinaya Namaha, indifferent to all else, indifferent to anything. We dwelt upon the concept given by Bhagavan in Ramana Gita, where he says that one who must understand whether he or she is ready for self-enquiry can dwell upon one's own sense of dispassion from worldly objects or objective experience. That is, when the mind goes on to any objective experience, if one finds distaste in it, disinterest in it, one is not attracted by that objective experience, whether it is positive or negative, if one is able to discard that experience as meaningless because it is only related to the object. It is related to the object and not to the self. And when the mind goes to an object, it moves away obviously from the self. There is a divide between the self, I, and the object. Whenever I have an objective experience, there is I and the object. But in the self, Bhagavan says in Ekanna Panchakam, Tannul Tanu Irukka. Everything is included in the self. It is not that the self is within us alone. It is not within every one of us even. It is that we are in the self. So, such a one who has experienced it, Bhagavan says, Tannai Arindidir Pin what is there, what is left to know, what is left to experience. Nothing is left to experience, nothing is left to look for. And we also meditated on Shamala Ramachandran Amma's concept that Bhagavan's tapas is to gain nothing at all. Normally, tapomaya, the performance of penance, tapasya, is in order to attain something or the other. Maybe even to attain the supreme. But Bhagavan's tapasya has no reason at all. Karanamilla Karunai Madai, he is called the one who gives, who pours his grace with no reason. Similarly, everything that he does has no reason, no motive at all. No motive whatsoever. When there's no motivation, he is called one who is Udasina, who is indifferent, absolutely indifferent. He was indifferent to what happened to his body, completely indifferent right from that moment when he had surrendered. Perhaps even earlier, even during the journey, what concern did he have? Even when he was coming to Arunachala, what real concern did he have for the body? He did not have any concern. In fact, he says that this indifference came to him the moment he began to taste the bliss of the self. That beautiful, wonderful roga came to him, he says. In a later Nama in Ashtottara, Vishwanatha Swami will tell us that he is Bhavaroga Vishakvara. He is the doctor for the disease of worldliness, the disease of samsara. He is the best doctor. And Bhagavan says when he got his experience of the self, because he had not read about it before that, because he did not know anything about even the word Brahman or Atman or anything about the concept of self-awareness, at that time he thought he had got some sweet disease. Very sweet disease, some sweet disease has come to me. It is so blissful, but it is different. It is inexplicable. So he was indifferent to everything. And Ganapati Muni says, though you are indifferent to everything, can you be without karuna to upon your devotees? Can you withhold your grace from the devotees? So even in that time we find devotees coming to Bhagavan and being blessed by him. We saw that Ratnama, the Devadasi, was blessed by him, and he has spoken richly of her in later years, of her tapas, of her dedication. And there are other devotees who came and enjoyed his presence. In those years, at that time, Uddandi Nayanar also came to him as a regular attendant. And soon after, another devotee, Annamalai Tambiran, joined him over there. And Annamalai Tambiran proposed that Bhagavan could shift his residence to Gurumurtam, the Matham, the place which he was looking after, under a particular Matham, the Adhinam, where he had the care of a place, Gurumurtam, the temple, slightly outside Tiruvannamalai, and they asked Bhagavan, Uddandi Nayanar and Annamalai Tambiran asked Bhagavan whether he was okay with their taking him to Gurumurtam. And it is recorded that Bhagavan made an effort to get up, and they took it as his consent, and they helped him. They held him on both sides, from both sides they held him, and he went with them to Gurumurtam. And at Gurumurtam, we see the absolute continuation of Bhagavan's indifference to his bodily needs to the extent that his nails grew long, his hair grew matted, he was not bothered about it, and he would hardly eat anything. But though his fame began to grow because of his physical condition, and people thought he was very, very old. Some people thought he was old. Some people came to him wanting booths from him. People started coming to him, but he continued to remain absolutely indifferent and to the bodily needs. And at that time, another attendant was provided by Arunachaleshwara. His name was Palani Swami. He came to attend on Bhagavan during the Gurumurtam days, because Annamalai Tambiran had to go away on his duties to the mud quite often, and Bhagavan was unattended. So indifferent was he. We have one incident where in the adjacent mango grove, it may be, or near Gurumurtam, when Bhagavan was there, Bhagavan has reported one instance where he was meditating with his eyes, or rather lost in tapas, or lost in Atmanubhava, with his eyes open. And this disturbed, somehow the tapasya also disturbed the urchin boys in the temple. It disturbed a group of robbers who had come there to rob something from the plants, from the trees. They decided to put some poisonous milk into his eyes from the cactus, Kallipala, it is said. But Bhagavan remained unmoved, even though these people were beginning their efforts to extract the Kallipala and might have even put it into his eyes. He remained completely indifferent. At that moment, one of the robbers saw better sense, and they did not harm those magnificent, those grace-giving eyes of Bhagavan. That was, of course, Arunachaleshwara's protection and benediction for all times to all of us, to keep those eyes available to all of us to shed the Atmanubhava directly. But Bhagavan's indifference was so much. And then he used to sit in Gurumurtam. All the time, ants were crawling on his body. Ants were crawling on his body. So many ants. Of course, in Patalalingam, we find vermin eating his thighs. But it is said in Gurumurtam, there was always a horde of ants climbing on his body. So what was done was that there was a stool kept for him to sit on, and under the legs of the stool, little cups of water were kept so that the ants would not climb onto the stool and onto Bhagavan. But Bhagavan would lean on the wall. So they had an easy bridge to get to him, and they would come to him. In fact, when we were younger and taken to Gurumurtam, and the Gurumurtam had not been renovated in those days, and we were shown the mark on the wall where Bhagavan would lean on the wall. So that much of, and Bhagavan says, in those days it was very difficult. Hardly what food would he have? Palani Swami and all, they would go begging for alms. Palani Swami would go, and people would come and bring something. Everything was mixed up, and one mouthful was all that Bhagavan would take in a day. And he did not take anything more than that. He did not accept anything more than that. Once Annamalai Tambiran wanted to offer worship to Bhagavan. He prepared everything. He prepared the garlands, the camphor, the incense sticks, and maybe even for Abhisheka, he had coconuts ready. And Bhagavan then wrote on the wall with a piece of charcoal, "Idukku iduve podum." For this is enough. Meaning to say, for this body, this food, the food alone is enough. Annamalai Tambiran understood and refrained from offering any ceremonial and ritualistic worship to Bhagavan. Nothing else. Even that he would accept as a concession to the devotees who were offering this food to him. Otherwise, he had no thought even of eating anything. As he has said, that if there is no tenant, rent need not be paid. If one is not occupying this body as a tenant, as this body is mine, with that idea, if one is not residing within the body, then why pay anything? Why pay any rent? Why give food also to this body? Was the question which Bhagavan had raised. Food was forthcoming, though he has said. Such was his supreme indifference that when a sage came to visit him over there, he is called Ashtottara. He came with his retinue of disciples and he wept with tears of joy on seeing Bhagavan. He bathed his feet with his tears of joy, and it is said that he pressed his feet with great love and adoration and said, exclaimed with wonder, said that it is possible to do great sadhana. It is possible to touch the state of samadhi. It is possible even to have nirvikalpa samadhi. It is possible to have great siddhis, but to remain in that state of sahaja nirvikalpa at all times with no change whatsoever in one's state of being, that extraordinary anubhava, that atma anubhava, radiating every moment from that being, that great force which we call Ramana. He says, such a one, where can we find? He says. And he is ever prostrating to him. He says, I cannot imagine how blessed I am to have come into such a presence. But when his disciples want to touch Bhagavan's feet and prostrate to him, he says, do not come so near this force. This is a great fire. It's a great fire, he says. You cannot withstand it. So, Mahayogine Namaha, says Vishwanath Swami in the next nama of his. He is Udasina and he is a Mahayogi. The Mahayogi is Shiva, that fire of Arunachala, the Adimudi Kana Jyoti. He is only referred to as a Mahayogi. The greatest of yogis is Shiva himself. Mahayogini Namaha. He is the Shiva, the power of Shiva. Indifferent to all else, the power of Shiva. Shiva, who can wear the skull bones as his garland, who can wear the serpents as his garlands, who is indifferent to even any insignia of beauty, and who therefore is described by Guha Namah Shivaya and Guru Namah Shivaya. They say, Shonagiri Appane Unsir Alagu, how beautiful you are with that garland of snakes, how beautiful you are with that garland of skulls, how beautiful you are with the sacred ash smeared all over you, O Lord. So that is the beauty of Shiva, where he is totally indifferent to his own beauty, and that extraordinary beauty radiates from him. That Mahayogi, who is also Udasina, we prostrate to that Ramana, and we prostrate also once again to Vishwanatha Swami, who has allowed us to enjoy Bhagavan in so many myriad ways through the 108 namas, and to dwell upon his life through these namas, because the life of Bhagavan is ever purifying. One of the devotees Y.V. Venkateshwara Rao, he says, Ramana Charita Chintana Nasha Bhavata Bandhana. When one meditates on Bhagavan's life, then all the bonds that hold us, that bind us, they they just get dissolved. They break loose of their own accords. Such is the magnificent life of Bhagavan, recorded for us lovingly with great devotion by Vishwanatha Swami. Once again, our prostrations to him and to the Master. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya.
Namo Ramana. We conclude today's satsang with the Ramana Ashtottara puja offered at Sri Dileep Simhaji's altar, and the chanting of the Ramana Ashtottara will be done by Vaibhavji and Prarthana, followed by Ujwal Jagadeesh.
नमो रमण भारद्वाज विश्वनाथ विरचितं श्रीरमणाष्टोत्तर शतनामावलिः अपार सच्चित् सुखवारिराशे यस्योर्मिमात्रं भुवनं समस्तं गुहाहितं तं भ्रमणं गभीरं चिन्ताविहीनं हृदि चिन्तयामि। ॐ महासेन महंसेन जाताय नमः। ॐ श्रीरमणाय नमः। ॐ गुरवे नमः। ॐ अखण्डसंविदाकाराय नमः। ॐ महौजसे नमः। ॐ कारणोद्भवाय नमः। ॐ जगद्हितावताराय नमः। ॐ श्रीभूमिनाथस्थलोस्थिताय नमः। ॐ पराशरकुलोत्तंसाय नमः। ॐ सुन्दरार्यतपःफलाय नमः। ॐ कमनीयसुचारित्राय नमः। ॐ सहायाम्बा सहायवते नमः। ॐ शोणाचलमहोलीनमानसाय नमः। ॐ स्वर्णहस्तकाय नमः। ॐ श्रीमद्द्वादशान्तमहास्थले लब्धविद्योदयाय नमः। ॐ महाशक्तिनिपातेन प्रबुद्धाय नमः। ॐ परमार्थविदे नमः। ॐ तीव्राय नमः। ॐ पितृपदान्वेषिणे नमः। ॐ इन्दुमौलिना पितृमते नमः। ॐ पितुरादेशतः शोणशैलं प्राप्ताय नमः। ॐ तपोमयाय नमः। ॐ उदासीनाय नमः। ॐ महायोगिने नमः। ॐ महोत्साहाय नमः। ॐ कुशाग्रधिये नमः। ॐ शान्तसङ्कल्पसंरम्भाय नमः। ॐ सुसन्दृशे नमः। ॐ सवित्रे नमः। ॐ स्थिराय नमः। ॐ तपक्षपितसर्वाङ्गाय नमः। ॐ फुल्लाम्बुजविलोचनाय नमः। ॐ चन्द्रिकासितहासश्रीमण्डिताननमण्डलाय नमः। ॐ चूतवाट्यां समासीनाय नमः। ॐ चूर्णिताखिलविभ्रमाय नमः। ॐ वेदवेदान्ततत्त्वज्ञाय नमः। ॐ चिन्मुद्रिणे नमः। ॐ त्रिगुणातिगाय नमः। ॐ विरूपाक्षगुहावासाय नमः। ॐ विराजदचलाकृतये नमः। ॐ उद्दीप्तनयनाय नमः। ॐ पूर्णाय नमः। ॐ रचिताचलताण्डवाय नमः। ॐ गम्भीराय नमः। ॐ परमाचार्याय नमः। ॐ सुप्रसन्नाय नमः। ॐ अभयप्रदाय नमः। ॐ दक्षिणास्य निभाय नमः। ॐ धीराय नमः। ॐ दक्षिणाभिमुखाय नमः। ॐ स्वराजे नमः। ॐ महर्षि ऋषये नमः। ॐ भगवते नमः। ॐ ईड्याय नमः।
ॐ भूमविद्याविशारदाय नमः। ॐ विमलाय नमः। ॐ दीर्घदर्शिने नमः। ॐ आप्ताय नमः। ॐ ऋजुमार्गप्रदर्शकाय नमः। ॐ समदृशे नमः। ॐ सत्यदृशे नमः। ॐ सत्याय नमः। ॐ प्रशान्ताय नमः। ॐ अमितविक्रमाय नमः। ॐ सुकुमाराय नमः। ॐ सदानन्दाय नमः। ॐ मृदुभाषिणे नमः। ॐ दयार्णवाय नमः। ॐ श्रीशोणाचलहृद्भूतस्कन्दाश्रमनिकेतनाय नमः। ॐ सद्दर्शनोपदेष्ट्रे नमः। ॐ सद्भक्तवृन्दपरिवृताय नमः। ॐ गणेशमुनिभृङ्गेन सेविताङ्घ्रिसरोरुहाय नमः। ॐ गीतोपदेशसारादिग्रन्थसञ्चिन्नसंशयाय नमः। ॐ वर्णाश्रममतातीताय नमः। ॐ रसज्ञाय नमः। ॐ सौम्याय नमः। ॐ आत्मवते नमः। ॐ सर्वावनिमतस्थानाम् आराध्याय नमः। ॐ सर्वसद्गुणिने नमः। ॐ आत्मारामाय नमः। ॐ महाभागाय नमः। ॐ मातृमुक्तिविदायकाय नमः। ॐ विनताय नमः। ॐ विनुताय नमः। ॐ विप्राय नमः। ॐ मुनीन्द्राय नमः। ॐ पावकोज्ज्वलाय नमः। ॐ दर्शनादगसंहारिणे नमः। ॐ मौनेन स्वात्मबोधकाय नमः। ॐ हृच्चान्तिकरसान्निध्याय नमः। ॐ स्मरणाद्बन्धमोचकाय नमः। ॐ अन्तस्तिमिरचण्डांशवे नमः। ॐ संसारार्णवतारकाय नमः। ॐ शोणाद्रीशस्तुतिद्रष्ट्रे नमः। ॐ हार्द्रविद्याप्रकाशकाय नमः। ॐ अविच्युतनिजप्रज्ञाय नमः। ॐ नैसर्गिकमहातपसे नमः। ॐ कमण्डलुदराय नमः। ॐ शुभ्रकौपीनवसनाय नमः। ॐ गुहाय नमः। ॐ दण्डपाणये नमः। ॐ कृपापूर्णाय नमः। ॐ भवरोगभिषग्वराय नमः। ॐ स्कन्दाय नमः। ॐ देवतमाय नमः। ॐ अमर्त्याय नमः। ॐ सेनान्ये नमः। ॐ पुरुषोत्तमाय नमः। श्रीरमणभगवते नमः। श्रीरमणाष्टोत्तरशतनामपूजां समर्पयामि। यस्ताणोररुणाचलस्य पदयोः स्मृत्या जनिं प्राप्यत दिव्यानुग्रहसुप्रवाहविवशस्तादात्म्यभावं गतः हृन्निष्ठस्वगभीरनित्यतपसा लोकान् पुनास्येकराट् तस्मै श्रीरमणाय ते नम इदं लोकोत्तरज्योतिषे। नमो 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 रमण सदाशिवप्रभावरण नमो महर्षि नमो महर्षि नमो 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 रमण सदाशिव प्रभावरण नमो महर्षि नमो महर्षि दर्शन सुख मंगल मुख सकल जीव हित सम्मुख ब्रह्म संगिये नमो 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 रमण सदाशिव प्रभावरण नमो महर्षि नमो महर्षि सदा तुष्ट सदा हृष्ट सदा शिवानंद पुष्ट परम महर्षि ब्रह्मनिष्ठ समदर्शी नमो 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 रमण सदाशिव प्रभावरण नमो महर्षि ನಮ್ಮ ಮನವದೊಂದು ಕಾಡು ನೀನರಿತಿಹೆ ಅದರ ಜಾಡು ಹಿತವನರಿತು ನೀಡು ತೆಮ್ಮ ಕೊರೆಯ ತಣಿಸಲೈ ಬೇಡಲೆಂದು ಬಂದ ನಾವು ನೋಡಿಯೇ ತಣಿವೆವಯ್ಯ ಮೋಡಿಗಾರನೇ ಹಿತವ ನುಡಿದು ಪೊರೆ ನಮ್ಮನು ಬ್ರಹ್ಮ ಸಂಗಿಯೇ ನಮೋ 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 ರಮಣ ಸದಾಶಿವ ಪ್ರಭಾವರಣ ನಮೋ ಮಹರ್ಷಿ ನಮೋ 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 ರಮಣ ಸದಾಶಿವ ಪ್ರಭಾವರಣ ನಮೋ ಮಹರ್ಷಿ बोलो भगवान श्री रमण महर्षि की जय।
Namo Ramana sir.